Welcome to Damn Good Movie Memories with your host, Brian Davis. This podcast is the cure for your long commute and super boring workday.
Cliff, I've had to face it. You know you'll want to see Marion again, quarrel with her over the bills and the children. She's the one who belongs in your life.
There's always tomorrow. An impassioned drama as real, as honest, as uncompromising as life itself. Clifford Groves had a business, a wife, 3 children, and a maddening feeling of frustration that comes from being trapped in a web of indifference.
I'm tired of the children taking over. I'm tired of being pushed into a corner. I'm tired of being taken for granted.
And then Norma Vale came back from out of his past, bringing exhilaration and excitement, and setting in motion the dark, ugly rumors that brand people.
Listen, Vinny, nobody's gonna know about this from me.
What impact would all this have on Marion, the unsuspecting wife? On Vinny, the son, and Anne, his fiancée? On 16-year-old Ellen, in a panic now that their safe, secure world was crashing around them?
We can't let Mother know. Do you think I want to believe that my...
Yes. I don't know why, Vinny, but you want to.
Oh, Miss Vale, I know we're to blame. But please, don't take Daddy away from us. Don't take him away!
I'm sorry I'm late. And I do have an appointment.
I've fallen in love with you.
No, this can't happen. I didn't mean for this to happen.
But it has happened.
Oh, please, Cliff.
Hey there, it's Brian Davis, and for this week's episode, we're going to cover the movie There's Always Tomorrow from 1956. The studio was Universal Pictures. Release date was January 8th, 1956. The running time, 84 minutes, and it was in black and white. Leonard Maltin from his Classic Movie Guide gives it 2.5 out of 4 stars. He writes, Fred MacMurray is in a rut, at work and at home, making him particularly susceptible to old flame Barbara Stanwyck, who comes back into his life. Sudsy, but well-acted soap opera. Now, this is one I saw on TCM back in the day, and I've always been a big fan of both Stanwyck and MacMurray, so I was happy to see when this was released on Blu-ray by Kino Lorber, a great studio, back in 2020. Alright, let's get into the making of the film. So this would be the 4th and final time Barbara Stanwyck and Fred MacMurray co-starred in a film together. The other 3 being the terrific Remember the Night from 1940, one of the best film noirs ever made, Double Indemnity from 1944, and then the 1953 Western, The Moonlighter. The movie is based on a book written by author Ursula Parrott. Now, the first time this film was adapted for screen was in 1934, starring Frank Morgan. Of course, you'll remember him as the almighty powerful Oz from the original Wizard of Oz. The 1956 version was directed by German director Douglas Sirk, who is best known for his melodramas like Magnificent Obsession, All That Heaven Allows, Written on the Wind, and Imitation of Life. Ironically, the subject matter of this film somewhat mirrored a scandal that affected the career of Joan Bennett. Bennett and her husband at the time, Walter Wanger, were involved in a shooting that wounded Bennett's agent Jennings Lang in 1951. It seems her jealous husband shot Lang, believing that Bennett and Lang were having an affair. Lang was not killed, but his left inner thigh was wounded. Crazy enough, Bennett and Wanger stayed together for another 15 years before their divorce in 1965. Wanger pled temporary insanity for the shooting and served 4 months in prison. However, Bennett's career suffered in the 1950s due to this incident, even though she appeared in many films prior to this in the 1930s and 40s. She later made a comeback on TV shows in the 60s and 70s, most notably on Dark Shadows. She later said if the scandal had happened in the 70s, it actually would have helped her career, not hurt it, compared to the much more conservative 1950s. Film-wise, a few of my favorite films with Joan Bennett include two with Edward G. Robinson, both of which we'll cover at some point. They were The Woman in the Window and Scarlet Street. She also co-starred with Spencer Tracy in the original Father of the Bride in 1951. She played Elizabeth Taylor's mother. All right, let's get into the film. So it opens in Pasadena, California, where we meet toy manufacturer Clifford Groves. That's Fred MacMurray, and he's working at his office. Cliff is looking at a new walking and talking robot toy. It's a rainy evening, and Clifford can't get in touch with his wife Marion, that's Joan Bennett, who is at home. The reason the line is constantly busy is because his teenage daughter Ellen, played by Gigi Perreault, has been tying up the line. Her older brother Vinny, played by William Reynolds, is also using the phone to call his girlfriend. Cliff arrives home later that evening.
Well, when can I call for you? About 10 minutes? Fine. Listen, Ann, are you going to be wearing my Capitol pin tonight? Ah, swell. Huh? Well, you, of course. And what about you? Say it again.
Marion? Shh. Oh, I'm sorry, son.
Okay, Dad.
Say, I'm either going to have to put another phone in for you and Ellen or buy a flock of carrier pigeons. I've been trying to call your mother from the office for at least an hour. Marion!
Hello, Daddy.
Hi, Frankie. What are you all dressed up for?
Mrs. Rogers, did you finish ironing my sash?
Well, I'm waiting for the iron to get hot.
Be very careful with it, Mrs. Rogers. The whole effect will be ruined if my sash is scorched.
Just right. Suppose you stay and supervise.
Marion.
Super what?
Well,
Marion.
see that I do it correctly.
Hello, dear. Oh, they're beautiful.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Groves.
Thank you.
Mother?
Yes, dear?
Mother, can I borrow your baby blue scarf? May I borrow your baby blue scarf?
Of course, dear. It's in the right-hand drawer of my bureau.
Thank you, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Hi.
Oh, they're lovely. I'll put them in a vase.
Oh, I'll do that. You just get yourself dolled up.
But, Cliff...
Now, I've got it all arranged. We'll drive into Los Angeles, have cocktails at the Stoddard, dinner at Bordeaux's. Then I remembered you mentioning that show down at the Royal, so I took a chance and stopped by on my way home. I was lucky. They'd just gotten a cancellation. 2 seats. First row on the aisle.
Oh, I could cry, going to all that trouble and in the rain, too. But don't you know tonight is the world-shaking event?
What do you mean?
The first recital of Frankie's ballet class.
Mother?
Yes?
I can't find the scarf anywhere.
Darling, it's right here. There you are.
Thank you.
Look, I'm very, very grateful that you were born. And may I point out that this is the one day in the year that belongs exclusively to you?
At my age, a birthday is only a time to turn all mirrors to the wall.
Nonsense. You're the female Ponce de Leon, the original Fountain of Youth girl. Well, you haven't changed since the first day.
Mama,
Yes, dear?
will my hair glitter across the footlights?
Like a glowworm, darling.
Come and help me with my sash.
Marion, Ellen can take her to the ballet class.
Ellen has a date.
Mama,
Coming, darling. I've got to help her.
Marion, do you know how long it's been since we were in the theater? 3 years.
Impossible.
It's true. Now, you get ready right now.
I can't. She'd be so disappointed. I remember learning in child guidance.
Hang child guidance. I'll explain to our little prima donna that her mother is entitled to a life of her own, at least occasionally.
I promised Frankie I'd take her. You'd want me to keep my promise, wouldn't you?
But... Princess,
Yes, Daddy, what is it? I'm in a hurry.
I guess your mother can't go to the theater tonight. How about you going with me?
Thanks heaps, Daddy, but I'm not in the mood for the theater. Gloria and I have emotional problems to discuss.
Yes, that's right. Your mother told me you're going to be busy.
I'll need some money.
Oh. Dollar all right?
I guess so. Thanks, Dad.
Ha! So $1 in 1956, well, that'd be the equivalent of $11 today. Cliff ends up home by himself, which for some parents with 3 kids might seem like a dream. However, Cliff actually wanted to spend some time, at least with his wife, but to no avail. Cliff's getting tired of the daily grind and just wants a vacation with his wife, alone. While eating dinner alone that night, he gets an unexpected visitor at his doorstep.
Yes?
Clifford Groves.
Yes. I'm sorry. I know we've met somewhere, but I just can't seem to...
Have I changed that much in these 20 years?
20... Norma Miller.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Come in. The rain, you must
The
be...
rain has stopped.
Well, come in anyway.
Thank you.
I hope you'll forgive the way I look. I really wasn't expecting anybody. I've been cooking.
Yeah, turn around and let me help you.
Thanks. Well, go in, won't you? I'll be right back. Norma, I must apologize for not having recognized you, but you look so different.
Compared to the plain young lady I was?
Oh, I didn't mean that.
Oh, I was plain. Flat heel shoes, no makeup. Very plain.
Norma Miller.
Norma Vale now.
Norma Vale.
Uh-huh.
Oh, come in and sit down. After all these years.
Yes, all these years.
I heard you were in New York.
I have been.
Well, it's certainly wonderful to see you again.
It's wonderful to see you, too.
How'd you find out where...
Oh, I tried phoning this house 6 times, but the line was always busy.
I know.
So I decided to disobey Emily Post and surprise you.
Well, it's the nicest surprise I've had in years.
Oh, the house is beautiful. Warm, cheerful. Just as I had imagined it. The kind you always wanted.
Yes, I guess I did.
Where is Mrs. Groves? I'd love to meet her.
And poor Marion. It's her birthday today, and I'd sort of planned a little celebration for tonight. I thought we'd go out to dinner, and I had tickets for the theater afterwards, but something came up and she had to go out. And the kids couldn't go. They were busy. I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
I even invited the cook. I don't suppose that you'd like to go, would you?
Well, I'd love to.
Really? We just have time to make it. I'll go get my coat.
No, I don't think so. This is fantastic. So completely unexpected, sitting here again like this. Don't you remember?
No.
The day you canceled all appointments, closed the office, and took me to a matinee in this very same theater.
I did?
Mm-hmm. You wanted me to see my first show direct from Broadway. But the next day you spoiled it all and made me cry.
I didn't.
Mm-hmm. You criticized one of my designs for the Indian doll, and I burst into tears.
Well, I hope I apologize.
No.
Well, then I do now.
Are you still in the toy business?
Yes, I'm still in it.
Are your offices far from here?
No, they're just a few blocks away.
Why don't you ask me to skip the second act?
You'd want to see the rest of it?
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. I saw the show in New York.
Well, why didn't you...
Come on, Cliff. I'd love to see what you've been doing.
All right.
Cliff and Norma's Barbara Stanwyck, they leave the theater and visit Cliff's office. Norma is now a fashion designer in New York. She used to actually work for Cliff 20 years earlier when Cliff was starting his toy business. Norma was married and now divorced. Cliff never understood why Norma quit so suddenly years ago and never gave a reason. Norma is evasive with the question and says she had her reasons. Now, it doesn't take a movie aficionado to know she likely held a flame for Cliff and he never realized it. And this is certainly not a new story arc, nor is it very different from real life. Norma is in town for a conference, so the two depart for the evening as Norma goes to her hotel and Cliff back home. Marion is asleep in bed and barely awake to greet Cliff, and he sullenly goes to bed. The next day, Cliff is at the office and excited for his weekend getaway with Marion. However, when Cliff arrives home, his youngest daughter Frankie is hysterical after spraining her ankle. A doctor comes over and she rests in bed, and just like that, the weekend's off. Cliff assumes once being treated, the housekeeper can take care of Frankie. But Marion refuses to leave Frankie until she's had x-rays. Marion insists that Cliff go on the trip himself, as he was still supposed to meet a client while they were there. So it's off to Palm Valley alone for Cliff. Cliff arrives at Palm Valley and goes to the hotel bar to meet his business associate, and then gets a surprise.
My, what an attractive jacket.
Oh, thank you. My wife picked it out.
Oh.
I think she has pretty good taste. She even buys ties for me that I don't mind wearing.
Oh, really? Excuse me, I think I'll get some sunshine.
Oh, certainly.
Another drink, sir?
Aren't you going to offer to buy me a drink?
Norma! You stayed on.
Yes, after the conference was over, I realized how tired I was, so I just stayed on.
Well.
But what on earth are you doing here?
Well, it was you that gave me the idea of Palm Valley, but I didn't dream you'd still be here.
Now I'll have a chance to meet Marion. Is she unpacking?
Oh, no, she isn't here. Frankie, our youngest, twisted her ankle yesterday, and Marion felt she shouldn't come.
Oh.
I'd have stayed home, too, except I have a business appointment here this afternoon. It may mean a fat contract. A man's interested in wrecks.
Oh, wonderful. Has he arrived yet?
No, he'll be here on the afternoon plan. You been horseback riding?
No, not yet, but I'm going. Why did you come along with me?
Me? I haven't any clothes for it. Besides, I haven't been on a horse.
Come on, what can you lose except your dignity? Come on.
Don't worry, Mr. Groves. Just ride her easy, and everything will come back to you.
Amen.
Wonderful.
You know, Norma, it's so easy for a man to slip into a rut. And once he's caught in it, he doesn't dare do the things he used to do. He doesn't feel the excitement he used to feel. If anything, he feels a little scared of life. But you know something? Right now, I feel as if I just made my first touchdown. I'm not a day older.
Excuse me. Do you remember a tune called Blue Moon?
Oh, you mean this old one?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Remember this, Cliff?
Yes, I remember.
Come on, let's dance.
I haven't danced in so long.
All the more reason. Come on.
I've probably forgotten how.
Excuse me, Mr. Groves, this just came for you.
Oh, thank you. It's from Andrews. He's not coming.
Oh, Cliff.
Says he'll meet me in Los Angeles next week.
Oh, what a shame after all your plans.
Maybe it isn't such a shame.
Oh?
I couldn't relax with Andrews here. This way I can get some rest and some sunshine.
Oh, then you're not going home in the morning?
Well, my reservations are for 2 nights. I might as well stay. Why don't you stay, too?
Well, I don't have to rush back. But the only thing is,
For me. I'd hate to be alone.
All right. I'll stay.
The two finish dancing and then stay in their separate hotel rooms. But unbeknownst to Cliff, his son Vinny and his girlfriend Anne, played by Pat Crowley, and then his buddy and girlfriend decide to take a trip to Palm Valley to surprise his dad, thinking that they'll probably get treated to dinner, or at least a night on the town, and you can see where this is going. Vinny arrives and asks the front desk to ring up his father, but Cliff isn't there. Vinny then asks for Mr. Andrews, the business associate Cliff was supposed to meet, but of course he never arrived either. The clerk informs Vinny that there's nobody by that name at the hotel. Again, it's definitely a movie trope and a TV trope of the uninformed mix-ups, but That's where this is headed. And then it happens. One of the bellhops says that they are together again, meaning Cliff and Norma. Vinny is confused, but heads to his father's room. Vinny arrives to see Cliff and Norma laughing, as Cliff puts an earring in Norma's ear. Vinny sort of spies with his buddy through the window and assumes that the two are, of course, having an affair as Norma gives a friendly kiss on Cliff's cheek. Vinny's friend tells him that he knows exactly what's going on, but Vinny angrily denies that his father would ever be having an affair. The group leaves without seeing Cliff, but Vinny's tune changes on the ride home. He now believes that his father's so-called business meeting was just a ruse to spend time with another woman. Vinny doesn't tell his mom. His girlfriend Ann already knows, but he does tell Ellen, his sister. Cliff arrives home and sees the trio. Ann acts normal, but Vinny and Ellen act awkwardly. But Cliff doesn't seem to mind. Vinny asks some prying questions about Cliff's trip, thinking that he would catch his father in a lie. However, Vinny's plan actually backfires, because Cliff divulges everything that really happened. His business associate canceled. He met an old friend, Norma, and then he spent time with her, and he even invited Norma over to the house later in the week to meet the entire family. Ellen and Ann feel like idiots that they believed Vinny's insinuations, but Vinny is still suspicious, thinking that his father isn't completely telling the truth. That night, Norma comes over for dinner. So what happens? Will there be fireworks, as Vinny already has his mind made up that his father is definitely having an affair with Norma? And does Cliff even realize that maybe deep down, he wants out of his marriage and his life with kids, and that Norma can give him that out? Does Marion even care or notice what Cliff's going through? Well, it's all answered in the final 45 minutes of the film. There's a terrific scene with Barbara Stanwyck and two of the kids that alone is worth watching this film. Stanwyck truly shines. While I wouldn't say that this film is mandatory viewing and the subject matter isn't anything new, the draw to the film is the undeniable chemistry between Stanwyck and MacMurray. They were two truly gifted actors and true movie stars that you simply don't find any longer. So even if the story is kind of like a soap opera, at less than 90 minutes, the film is well worth your time. All right, a fun fact. So Douglas Sirk wanted his version of There's Always Tomorrow to be filmed in color, but Universal Studios just refused. As a compromise with Sirk, Universal granted Sirk's request to hire cinematographer Russell Meddy. Meddy would eventually win an Oscar in 1960 for his work on Spartacus. And yes, Spartacus was in color. All right, someone that always colors up this podcast is, of course, Lindsay, who is also a big fan of Barbara Stanwyck and her films, but she's never seen this one. So let's get her fresh take on the film, and then I'll be back next week to talk about yet another random movie from my DVD collection. Okay, we're back with Lindsay. Welcome back.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be here. I'm a little nervous today. It's my first recording since having to wear Invisalign.
Well, why give away the secret?
Oh, God. Well, I'd rather people know up front what's up if I sound different.
Up front?
Exactly. This isn't
the
easy.
Rain and Plane falls mainly on...
It's more like Sally sells seashells.
So you're doing well.
I'm doing my best. I mean, it's been 32 years since I had to wear anything like this, so lucky me, I get to do it all over again.
Well, good. Just like Barbara Stanwyck, Fred MacMurray, and Joan Bennett, they didn't have to deal with these issues back then, but they had issues to deal with. And if you didn't know already, well, Lindsay's actually a big fan of Barbara Stanwyck, but she might not have known that Fred MacMurray and Stanwyck actually appeared in 3 movies prior to this, before There Is Always Tomorrow. The most popular and the most well-known is Double Indemnity for 1944, which I saw back in college. It's one of my favorite film noirs of all time. She plays the absolute kind of barometer of femme fatale back in the day, which is definitely worth watching. Also, I think you'd really enjoy Remember the Night, so you should check that out as well. Anyway, so this is a different type of movie. Maybe not for you, but it's interesting. So this takes place in 1956, and while there were films about potentially infidelity in a marriage, this doesn't... I mean, it kind of goes there, but it doesn't. So how did you feel about kind of the soap opera angle of this film?
I mean, in a lot of ways, it felt like kind of an honest portrayal of what might happen in a marriage over time. Mm-hmm. Stress, time, kids. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on people, and I feel like this story it's kind of as old as time. I mean, I still hear about people suffering from the same things today, and maybe it feels a little controversial, if you will. They were willing to show it this way from back in the mid 50s or so. But it felt pretty real and pretty respectful, certainly in the beginning. I mean, when I think back to some of the other films of the day that I've seen, they tend to paint the picture of perfect wife and perfect husband and all of that. And
very Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, and this one was, people were flawed. People were lonely. People were craving respect and attention, and
you didn't get divorced back then. You could, but it was far less prevalent as it is today.
I mean, it seemed like more people gutted it out then for whatever reasons they ascribed, society, perhaps religion, children, whatever. I love Barbara Stanwyck, as you mentioned. I think she can do just about anything, and when I think of many of the roles that I've seen her in, 40s, 50s, and so on, she tends to play a pretty sort of grounded, powerful, intelligent, kind of enviable woman for whatever the reason. This was no exception. She was an extremely successful designer, and she seemed like a lovely lady. It's weird. At no point did I ever think of her as the other woman.
No.
She really wasn't playing into that. In fact, she was doing her best to kind of not become that, despite the fact that if she really thought back, I mean, she sees, Fred MacMurray's character as the one that got away. So, I mean, I guess, how did I feel about it? I think it was probably a little controversial. I think I was maybe a little surprised at the honesty and the openness, but I don't know. I still had a lot of respect for the characters in this, despite their flaws. Sometimes in the modern films, some of that respect goes by the wayside when you consider situationally who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. But this one didn't do that.
Well, certainly today, we play this game all the time. If it was made today, they would have handled everything a lot differently. What I found interesting, and this maybe plays into today, so Joan Bennett's character, when Barbara Stanwyck comes over for dinner after he's invited over, or if she's invited over, the son is he's straight out of an episode of Three's Company. This is mistaken identity, mistaken situation, all of that for the most part. He's thinking bad thoughts, even though stuff may or may not have happened. So he kind of acts out at the dinner. And then afterwards, Joan Bennett, who plays Fred MacMurray's wife in the film, kind of mentions how she felt sorry for Barbara Stanwyck. Even though Barbara Stanwyck has this great career, she feels in her mind that she's lonely because she doesn't have kids and all that. Well, you fast forward to today in 2024, I think most people would rather be Barbara Stanwyck than Joan Bennett.
I mean, I'm much more Barbara Stanwyck than Joan Bennett in that,
I think a lot of modern women are.
I mean, and in my case, I mean, it's more like I made a conscious decision about, what I wanted for my life. And that's not to say I was this super focused, career driven person. I mean, I've been happy in my career and I've enjoyed what I've done, but for me, it was just a choice not to have children. And that was my, decision. And I knew it early, and I stuck with it, and I don't feel like I'm lonely or I missed out or like I made a mistake or anything. But I did find Joan Bennett's comment about that interesting, because the truth is a lot of women can read situations, right, like that. And they can almost, one of two things happens. They either have a really good gut read on what they think is going on. And in this case, I think Joan Bennett did have that gut read. I think she could sense it and feel it.
And she had a gut read of this circa 1956,
right.
too.
So that's one, possibility. And the other possibility, and it's a much more modern construct, so I'm glad it didn't happen as much maybe back then, is that sometimes when people say that, they're doing it because they almost secretly envy that person's life, and they look at their own, they look inward and see in that person almost what they wish they had, And what they need to do is project some kind of sadness or regret or loneliness to kind of justify their own situation. So it's either
Which I don't think she's doing in this case.
I don't either. I think she truly read it from her gut. But I think it's interesting that kind of cuts both ways with people. It doesn't matter who, male, female, whomever, that's at the center of that. But I think sometimes people just have really good gut instinct, and sometimes it's projection. They want to feel better about their own life choices. But I agree it was the former in this case.
How did you feel about kind of the setup here in the sense that, the children kind of took Dad for granted. They never really appreciated him until the chips were down. They thought that, oh, well, maybe Dad might leave or something like that. Do you think that happens more often than not, that children kind of take their parents for granted? Or, was Fred MacMurray justified in basically kind of second-guessing his current life?
I mean, that's a great question. I'm sure to some degree, children, I don't have any, right? So, take this with a grain of salt. I'm sure there are kids that take their parents for granted. I mean, many of us probably do. When I think back to my own parents, I was very close to my parents, but sure, I probably took for granted lots of things about them without really meaning to do that. Was he justified? I think he was lonely. I think he craved the relationship with his wife that maybe he once had when they were younger and life was less
childless.
Life was less complicated, including being childless. There's a lot of good examples in here of him trying to create opportunity to spend time with his wife and or his kids, for example, wife and kids, just kids, where he's kind of trying to carve that and can't seem to get it. And it does seem in a few of the scenes that his wife is favoring needs of the child over his. Now, I think a lot of parents, again, I'm not one, but I think a lot of parents would argue, hey, when you have kids, that's your big responsibility.
Sure. And that's valid.
Exactly. You have to be willing to give up some of your more personal things in service of these kids. You made that choice. Yeah. You made that choice. You made it 3 times in this case.
Yep.
And they have a younger child.
Yeah, who actually was the most annoying of them all.
Oh my gosh, she seemed rather petulant.
Because she's younger.
Yeah, she's younger. But, I would argue that, this is a tough one. I can see both sides of this. I can see why Fred MacMurray feels the way he does. And I can see why Joan Bennett feels that as a mother and a doting and dedicated one at that, she really needs to be attentive to her kids when she feels she needs it. She wants to be supportive of dance recitals or someone has an injury, which covers 2 of the scenarios where she was...
Both from the same kid.
Yeah, where she was not going to do something with her husband that she would have been doing otherwise in order to tend to or cater to or take care of her youngest daughter. So, I mean, it's tough. I think maybe one of the reasons it makes this a good film is that
you can see both sides.
You can see both sides. Yep. In a lot of modern day stuff, I mean, it's easier for me to pick a side. This one, it's really kind of difficult.
Well, I think maybe that's the brilliance of this film, even though it might seem like kind of a, I wouldn't call it a B film, but kind of not even a throwaway film, just a film that got released. It got 2 big stars, actually 3 big stars, and it's interesting to watch. I tell you, one of my favorite characters, obviously Barbara Stanwyck is the draw here, along with Fred MacMurray, is actually Pat Crowley, who plays Anne, that plays the son's girlfriend. I thought she was great. I said she actually was the most rational of any of the kids, and frankly, sometimes more than the adults.
She was. I mean, I think she was before her time, too. And I think she was a kind of a standout gut read herself. I mean, she
admired the Barbara Stanwyck character.
She did. She's basically the one who was, convincing her boyfriend, who's also their son, that he probably wasn't looking at this through the clearest or cleanest lens that he could have been.
Right.
And that, taking maybe the emotion out of it or the first impression out of it, she kind of encouraged him to give his dad the benefit of the doubt and whatnot. I think that this gets a little tricky Because if you really want to dig hard, was he really wrong? Was the son really wrong about what he was seeing? Yes and no. He wasn't seeing some kind of sordid, cheap affair based on lies and trickery.
Like, he wasn't going after a prostitute or something like that, or some fling.
He was seeing two people
that
genuinely liked each other and had feelings for each other, trying to navigate and fight that off. So, I mean, was he wrong? Debatable. Yeah. Probably not wrong, but also...
He also didn't go about it the right way either.
No, but he was angry. And you know what? I mean, looking from his perspective for a minute, I think that if that were me, I might have been upset too, and I might have done what he did, which was kind of like, what do you think the path of least resistance is here? Yeah. What do you think is most likely? Now, maybe back in that day, I don't know how likely it would have been. I mean, today it's sadly incredibly common, and social media has made that easier than ever. However, I guess that's an interesting way to think about this. He's wrong, but he isn't. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much we can villainize him for calling out what he did, because it wasn't exactly what he thought it was, but it also wasn't not that, if you follow that.
No, yeah. I mean, that's why this is really kind of an interesting film, because these things still come up today. I just think they, as we said, they kind of handle it in a classier situation. I think it would be a lot more, I don't know, ghetto.
It would certainly be more...
Today, if they did it.
I think it would be more graphic, and I think it would be more focused on maybe either trying to fight physical temptation or whatever.
It feels like it would be a reality show like The Bachelorette or something like that, where they're vying for it. I mean, everything seemed classier back then.
It did.
Yeah.
And Barbara Stanwyck's character was one of high moral fiber, right? Like, I don't think she could deny that she had these feelings, but at the same time, she was also trying to do the right thing here, and knowing that this felt wrong also.
One of the weird things, and part of it's just being a movie, and this movie's actually very short, it's only 84 minutes. She kind of shows up out of the blue. It's never really explained why. We're not sure if she's showing up out of the blue because she's trying to rekindle something, or simply she happens to be in town.
She's in town,
and she wants to see him, but it just seemed... I mean, obviously, circumstances in movies always happen to fall into a certain thing because they have to. But again, it's never really covered, and maybe it doesn't need to be that she magically shows up, and that's just part of the movie. Or I will say, without giving it away, the best scene is at the very end when she kind of, whether she wanted to or not, confronts Vinny, the son, and Ellen, the middle daughter.
The middle daughter, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great scene. And again, Barbara Stanwyck, she really is my favorite.
She kind of stole the show there.
She just, I just love everything about her as an actress. And boy, she's had some really good roles. Truly one of my favorites. But yeah, that is a moment of real kind of honesty and
great
class
acting.
And great acting and interesting. She didn't treat them like children in that moment. She kind of like leaned in like an adult. She's like, you are adult enough to hear what I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
And she just went for it. And I mean...
You don't want to hear this, but here it goes.
But here it goes. I mean, she basically held a mirror up to those kids.
Yep.
And without giving it away, she made them look in it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, today, I mean, gosh... So many people would be afraid to have that conversation with people. It's just very...
Yeah, somebody would have been murdered. Somebody would have been beaten.
It's just it was a different time. One of the things that I like about these older films, and truth be told, I didn't have a ton of exposure to films of this era before, right? These last couple of years I've been doing this with you. This has been... probably the greatest streak of older film that I've ever... Yeah, I agree. There's a thank you that's necessary there. But this is the longest streak I've ever been on watching films from these eras, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It's interesting to see how film has developed and storylines and plot lines have changed.
And culture.
And many films of those decades past feel very of the time. This one's interesting because while there are elements of it that certainly lock it to 1956, it's dealing with very modern issues or issues that maybe have always been issues. And it really does have a lot of sides and perspective in a way that, despite maybe the black and white and maybe the fashion, though Barbara Stanwyck, oh gosh, always dressed to the nines, amazing, and she's a fashion designer in the film. But it's really dealing with things that are like as old as time, and there's a, I don't know, timeless kind of element to this subject.
Well, and that's the thing that frustrates me about today. And this isn't a get off my lawn, I'm too old type of thing. It is kind of the nature of social media and TikTok, where literally anything that's an hour old is like ancient history. Like literally nothing happened past last week. Like the lack of history is appalling. And if people would just go back and read a book, watch an old movie, you would realize, oh, that stuff like that still happens today. We were just talking, when this episode comes out, we did an episode called The Mayor of Hell. We were talking about reform schools. That movie was made in 1933. You had just seen a documentary in 2023 about reform
90s.
schools.
Yeah.
About and how nothing changes. People think it's so much different back then. And yeah, certain things are different, but certain premises never change. And people would just realize that maybe history won't keep repeating itself. We never learn from anything because everyone just forgets. Anyway.
No, that's a good point. I mean, you always like to say that there's no new films because basically they're just
out of
recycle
ideas.
plot lines over and over.
And part of that's money.
But in a sense, I mean, the challenges that we have today, in many respects, barring certain things, are as old as time. And this film, to me, really represents, a conundrum that a lot of adult people face in their lives, and the crossroads that they stand at when they have to make decisions about what is right and what they want and what is fair. And when there are other people involved, like spouses and children, these situations get ever more complicated. I think this is
that's never changed.
No, and I think this is a good example of all of that complexity kind of reaching a fever pitch, and what do you do when that happens? And I think it's worth checking this film out for sure. I surprisingly really liked it.
And sure, it's got a soap opera angle to it, but it's not heavy-handed. I mean, it definitely has that vibe, but that's, part of making film. Well, I want to get your take on this before we kind of wrap up. They did talk about making this film in color, and actually Universal refused, probably because it costs more money. Do you think this movie was better in black and white? I personally am fine with it. I think it led to kind of the moodiness of the film. Would you have rather seen this in color?
Ooh. I mean, I would say there's definitely like, a feeling that comes with some of these films in black and white. It felt a little more dramatic, I guess, to be in the black and white. I think it was expected by me to be black. I would have been very surprised if this was in color. Other than really wanting to have seen her outfits outside of the black and white film, because they looked amazing. And again, just what a classy lady. I love her.
Joan Bennett looked great too.
Oh, she did.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
She definitely did like a mother of three.
That's true. Yet another shout out. Someone who just was the picture of class.
And actually, Anne, the girlfriend, looked really nice too.
Oh yeah, even the daughter. I mean, everyone in this film. Maybe that's why I liked it so much. They carried themselves with some kind of class.
For a salacious, almost like soap opera type film, it doesn't come off that way because of
it wasn't like telenovela.
Isn't that interesting?
It was really kind of well done. I don't think the color would have maybe added to anything, except the only part that might have been cool in color. And again, I don't know.
When they were in,
was when they were in the toy shop.
Oh, okay. I was saying
some
like
of
maybe
the vibrancy of that might have been kind of neat.
I was thinking maybe when they were in Southern California,
or when they were in Southern California on their little vacation. Probably would have been neat. But I don't know, the toy, like seeing the little toy robot and
that was
some
kind
of
of fun.
Some of the
gadgets.
clever ideas that he and the team were coming up with. That might have been neat, but I think it maybe helped add to the drama, the suspense. Yeah, the kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, mystique, I guess, is a good word. It felt very dramatic to be shown that way, and I don't know. Maybe it would have lost something in color.
Mm-hmm.
Toys would have been cool, though.
So this was another winner for you?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know what to expect half the time when I hear some of the very loose plots of
I do that on purpose.
Films. Right, no, but sometimes I don't really know what I'm going to be dealing with and how, like, campy or whatever it's going to be for the time.
Sometimes you like that camp.
Yeah, and honestly, this one was one where I'm like, wow, like, there were moments where it felt like heavy. I mean, and a lot of these older films, they don't read like that. They don't feel that way to me. A lot of them have been dramas that we've watched, but sometimes they're almost like cheesy. You know, like there's cheesy. This was not that. This was really like, it felt dramatic. It felt heartbreaking. It felt kind of like a rebirth of joy in some respects, because through the Barbara Stanwyck and Fred MacMurray character, you're seeing people who've kind of been struggling in their adult life find their happiness, even though it's kind of in maybe a bit of a taboo, way.
It's also interesting for fans of like Disney films to see Fred MacMurray before he kind of became that kind of lovable dad, because he was also in, I think it was My Two Sons later in the 60s.
I didn't even realize that was him.
He was in The Absent-Minded Professor. He was in The Shaggy Dog. Like, he kind of became that kind of lovable, kind of goofy dad, where in the 40s and the 50s, he would play that kind of male hunk lead that you would have never thought. I mean, so, I've talked about this with other people. There are certain actors and actresses that you might know them in different phases of the career, and that's really the testament of a great performer that can be seen by different generations in different roles.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I would make the argument that Barbara Stanwyck is just, if I had to pick an actress that I really admired and that I thought made consistently remarkable and worthwhile and intelligent and just kind of captivating films of these, of these decades, she would skyrocket to the top of my list. I mean, Christmas in Connecticut is one of my favorites.
Double Indemnity. Well, I tell you,
I just love her in that film.
They actually made movie stars back then. There is nobody that can compare it to Barbara Stanwyck or Fred MacMurray, even Joan Bennett today. And, this notion that, actresses aren't paid enough today. Barbara Stanwyck, I'm sure, was paid more than Fred MacMurray in this because she was the star of the film. So they made stars back then, female and male, and it's forgotten because it doesn't fit a certain narrative of today, but there truly were superstars, male and female, back in the day, and it doesn't exist anymore because you could basically put anyone in a superhero costume. It doesn't take a lot of talent to go play Spider-Man. Sorry, I enjoy the Spider-Man movies, but you could put Joe Schmo in it and be fine. Chris Evans as Captain America, that's great. You're just some random white dude.
I mean, I haven't seen much of those, so I really don't have strong perspective because I've seen so few of them.
But that's why I implore people. I mean, people just won't watch movies because they're old. But you would actually, the only reason I think this would be interesting to people is because of who was in it. The reason this interested me wasn't the story. It was, Barbara Stanwyck's in this. She's awesome. She's great in everything. Fred MacMurray, I like him too. I remember Joan Bennett. I'm going to check out this film. There is not one movie I would see with maybe an actor. There's a handful maybe today, but certainly not like back in the day. There were tens and tens of them. Whereas today, you might go see, whoever your favorite director is. You might like.
Well, I always see a Christopher Nolan film in the
and you might one or two. Some people might like Emma Stone. Maybe they'll go see everything. But Emma Stone can't compete with Barbara Stanwyck. And Emma Stone, or the one that played Barbie, she would be comparable to Barbara Stanwyck, I guess, in popularity. But she's not even close if you look at her body of work.
I just think that what's so impressive to me when you look back at some of these films is that certainly the female leads in a lot of these films, they did steal the show, and they were kind of large and in charge, and the films were built around them. And in some cases, like I think Barbara Stanwyck's literally the perfect example, she was just kind of like ahead of her time in so many ways.
Right.
And
so this narrative that females weren't in power back then or didn't have a say is patently false, because there was actually more female stars back then than there are today, ironically.
I would just say, and using her as the example, when I would think about her films and I would think about, the types of roles that she was cast in, they're all pretty strong.
Yeah, she's not some passive housewife.
I mean, one of the things I love about Christmas in Connecticut is exactly that. The story there is essentially...
She wasn't domesticated at all.
No, she was writing for a magazine, acting like she was, a wife and a mother, and she lived on this farm and whatever. But the truth is, she was a real city lady that was just very career-driven and very successful. And I don't know, she had to basically play into the... expected kind of role of a woman to have that job when she was the exact opposite.
Well, right at the top of my head, I can say you have Joan Crawford, Betty Davis, Barbara Stanwyck, Katharine Hepburn. Right off the top of my head, there's many more I could do, and they were all their own person. Can you think of any actress today? They like to act like they are their own person and everything, but they can't even compete with what was back then. And so have we actually had that much progress? That's kind of ironic.
I mean, yeah, and you have a better take on film than me, but
that's great. Scarlett Johansson's super popular now. She can't hold a candle to any one of the actresses I mentioned.
Well, and I would leave listeners with this. I would say I had a lot of hesitancy to watch some of these older films because I thought I'd be really bored, or I thought they would just be kind of like weird or whatever. And it really is a fallacy. And I am so glad that I was kind of willing to open kind of eyes and mind to some of these films that I thought might have been coming from some kind of stodgy kind of old school era or whatever, because I was wrong about a lot of it. And also, I was really impressed by the performances of some of these actors from back in the day. The plot lines of some of these films. Also, gosh, the way that these directors and actors had to stretch because they didn't have certain things, like some of the campy films we've done together, like Tarantula or Them. I mean, honestly...
They had to be more creative.
You had to be really creative to make that work. And not only did they do it, but they did it in a way where I was kind of a skeptic and a naysayer. And then when I would see what they did do to make it work, I'm like, something?
It's more fun than CGI.
That was pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it to be that good. And so what's ended up happening is that a lot of, I guess, my preconceived notions about what I expected ended up kind of getting blown away by what was really there. Don't get me wrong. It's not that there weren't a few maybe duds in the mix, but there's a few duds in everything. Mix. Even right down to people who would maybe say, oh yeah, you watch those old Marilyn Monroe films and she's kind of playing the ditzy character. You got to understand, it's
also called acting.
She was acting
character.
Yeah, she was playing her character to a T and doing a really
great
job.
And laughing all the way to the bank.
Because that was the character. It's not that every woman was modeled after that from those films. She was playing certain characters, and when she did a great job, just like Barbara Stanwyck did, just like Katharine Hepburn did. I mean, they're all really on this pretty impeccable and impressive level, and I would say to people, if you were like me, and you really didn't think that these films from back in the day would hold your attention or could be interesting, please give them a try. This is a really good one. I was missing out, and I'm glad that now I've seen some of these films and some of these stars and seen what they were capable of, because they really are impressive and it's really worth your time.
So here we go. You wore your Invisalign and we did our longest interview ever. So
oh my gosh,
congratulations.
I am probably just going to hang my head in shame when I hear what I sound like during this. But I figured
you don't like to listen to your stuff anyway.
I do.
She does these and forgets all about them.
I do.
Yeah, she doesn't even listen to this podcast.
No, that's not true.
She'll watch an old movie. She won't listen to her own.
Who really likes to listen to themselves over
I love
again?
it.
Especially like, Sally sells seashells down by the seashore version of me.
Congratulations. You're a winner.
I said it.
There's always tomorrow.
True that.
If you enjoy this podcast and are an iTunes user, please do the show a favor and head on over to the official iTunes page for Damn Good Movie Memories. Be sure to leave a rating and a review. This will allow the show to appear higher in the algorithm and spread the joy of this podcast to the masses. If you are not an iTunes user, you can still listen and subscribe on Podbean at damngoodmoviememories.podbean.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook under our Damn Good Movie Memories page. You can also listen to a limited number of episodes on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and be sure to tune in next week for an all-new episode of Damn Good Movie Memories.